Yo, it's Adrian Hernandez, the Sporting Tribune and Odyssey Sports. I'm smiling, and when I'm smiling and we're on video, you usually know it's for one thing. We're talking some wrestling. We got some big events to close out the year and start next year, too. Of course, Impact Wrestling Hard to Kill coming to us on December 9th. That'll be on Impact Plus. You can get it on Fight TV. But also, for all the folks watching and listening in Vegas, TNA Hard to Kill, January 13th at the Palms Casino. And joining us is Josh Alexander. Josh, first off, welcome to the show. And we'll start here as the year closes out. This year for you has been interesting, right? You returned from injury and that historic reign, Impact and TNA, some name changes, some anniversaries. You've had some amazing matches with some greatness that we'll get to specifically. And yeah, so basically, how's your year been?
My year is good. Like you said, I went through some injury. One of the, other than my neck back in 2014, the only injury that's kept me out of the ring for a sustained amount of time. I missed 4 or 5 months over this torn tricep deal, but I came back strong, had some sweet matches, and got on some amazing Impact Wrestling shows along the way. And the one thing that stuck out in your whole intro there is when you flipped from closing out the year Impact Wrestling, you said TNA coming in January to Vegas. Man, just hearing those words out loud, it gives me goosebumps, gets me real excited. So
No, I mean, I can't tell you the hype like for January 13th. I'm very excited. But listen, before we get into all that, because this is the first time we've had an interaction, which I'm going to get to here in a sec. But before that, and before we get into TNA, I want to break the ice, and you know what I'm saying, before we get into all the wrestling and all the things I need to ask you to get on Fightful and all that stuff. We'll start here. Draymond Green, a couple weeks ago, had a great ode to professional wrestling with the chokehold. So, as one of the best wrestlers in the world, if I could kind of get a play-by-play on the technique and the form, like how did he do?
his form and technique was not good. I'm gonna say that right off the bat, my man. When you got a man in a chokehold and he's comfortable with his hands up, like Rudy Gobert's hands were up the entire time, you're not doing too much damage there. He did have a real good grip around his neck to drag that 7-footer around, but yeah, if you really want to do some damage, man, he's got to tighten that thing up a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, but isn't that more difficult because Rudy's like 7'3"? Like you don't give him a little bit of, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I saw the clips. I saw it over and over again. I'm a big NBA guy, and Rudy Gobert was hunched over. Rudy Gobert was all of 6 foot nothing when he was in that chokehold. So I don't think he would have a problem. My thing out of that whole deal was how are none of I think Kat was right beside him. How is nobody helping him?
It's usually your teammates. It's the closest ones that don't really have your back. And we can confirm this. Draymond Green open door to Impact and TNA Wrestling. You're welcome every time. We know he can cut a promo. Not the biggest fan of him, but we'll move on. One thing I do want to ask you, speaking of chokeholds, last time you guys were here in Vegas, and I talked to Trinity about this for No Surrender, it was the first time I took my 5-year-old son to wrestling, and he had a blast. But then I got a message from school that there was an incident in the playground where someone was trying to take his stuff, and he kind of clotheslined the kid. Really great technique. As a professional wrestler, and like with your kid, and I know you've had the moment you brought him out to the ring. It was amazing. Like how do you explain what dad does? How does that work?
Well, I've tried to explain it many times. The one benefit I have with my 5-year-old son, Jet, who's an enormous wrestling fan and a huge Impact TNA fan, which, I'm really grateful for because I'm the coolest dad in the world. There's nothing I need to explain to him. My kid is just an almanac of pro wrestling now. He watches like my entrance when we came out together. We didn't rehearse that. That was just how he watched me do my entrance so many times, and he like mirrored it exactly. It was his moment to shine in that moment. So the one thing I will say is the way I manage it with him going to school, being a wrestling fan, coming home and wrestling me around the house is we say if that happens at school ever, he's not coming to TNA or Impact Wrestling shows anymore. So it's worked so far. So
That's what I need to implement. You know what I'm saying? There needs to be stakes on the behavior. I love this. And let me bring up the No Surrender show again, because this is where we had this interaction. I was lucky enough to be a part of a match. I was kind of disappointed in my performance. We don't need to talk about that. But because I was a part of the match, we had the game plan, we had to strategize. So I was walking around backstage like, oh my God, this is crazy. So this is what it's like. And I walked past you. And for my radio producers in Las Vegas and Hawaii, I apologize. You guys are going to have to bleep this out. For people watching at home, this is not going to get bleeped because we can say whatever we want. You walked past me and said, hey, don't fuck up, kid. And I was like, I didn't even introduce myself. I was like, I'm not gonna burn the house down. And I appreciate you. It kind of got me refocused. But since that was my first moment, I want to take you back. Do you have any memories of your first wrestling match ever?
Yeah, and they're not fond ones, to be honest. I might have been told, don't F up by, 15 different people who probably had no business telling me not to F up that night. But yeah, my first wrestling match, unfortunately, was 3 weeks after I began training. And we were doing a student show for my wrestling school, and somebody just bailed to go to an actual booking where he was getting paid, and they needed somebody to fill in, and everybody pointed at me, and I was like, no, I'm not ready. What are you talking about? I started this 3 weeks ago. I can't do this. What are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. And they convinced me to do it. So I just went out there in like Lance Armstrong, long black bike shorts that I got from like Dick's Sporting Goods, and a t-shirt. And it was a white t-shirt, I remember. And at the end of it, there was blood soaked through my chest through that white t-shirt because of all the chops I had taken through, the 30 minutes my first match was, which was completely insane.
Whose decision was that? What?
Well, in 2005, things were a bit different. And, the bullying aspect of pro wrestling, the making you earn it to get in the ring and stuff was, that was far more prominent. So everybody wanted me to take my licks to show that, I'd still show up the next day at training and wouldn't just tuck tail and head home. And, whether it's stupidity or passion, I showed up the next day and kept going. So,
that's wild. They're like, hey, your first match, 60-minute Iron Man match. Good luck, my friend. And you hinted at something earlier. And you talked about how I said the name change from Impact to TNA, which in Vegas for Hard to Kill will be the first official, pay-per-view underneath the TNA umbrella again. And you seem excited about it. I know I've seen you on social media. What were your thoughts when you first heard that, this name change is happening?
Instant excitement. I was unable at the time to travel we filmed that thing that aired, post Bound for Glory, the whole announcement for TNA.
Yeah.
And they wanted me in it. And I was just like, well, I'm booked that day. I have to do this for my visa. And they were just like, make it happen. And I was just like, I don't know if I can. They're just like, well, this is what it is. And they made me sign an NDA. And they told me, and I was like, okay, I'll move heaven and earth to make this thing happen because, not just as a wrestler in the Impact Wrestling locker room, all of us are super excited for TNA because we've either been a part of TNA in the past, guys like Frankie Kazarian, Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, the list goes on, or all of us like me, Jordan Grace, and all these other names, Trey Miguel's, Chris Bay's, we grew up being enormous fans of TNA. Those three letters are synonymous with what gave us a passion to get into the wrestling business in the first place. So for us to be able to be a part of it now under this rebranding and, going back to that name, I think it's just tremendously exciting. I'm so happy to be a part of it. And I honestly got goosebumps talking about it right now. I just can't wait for January 13th.
Yeah. Full disclosure, your passion is like getting me pumped up. Like I'm ready to run through a wall. And you bring up that history and that legacy and know you're a big wrestling fan and every, like all your success, like in the passion, like it's what I personally believe like people love about you. And when you talk about the history of TNA, let me put you on the spot really quick. Who's the greatest TNA world champion of all time?
Oh, man. When you specify world champion, I think the greatest TNA wrestler, the one person, if you close your eyes and you hear the words TNA, the first person you can think about is AJ Styles. I just got to go with that. And, we're talking about greatest champions. Although, me with the longest reign, the most historic reign in this company's history, I might be up there. But for me as a fan, I got to go with Kurt Angle.
Those two are not bad picks, and I ain't going to argue with you, my man. Out of curiosity, because I know how big of a fan you are, like, how nerdy did it get for you?
Which part?
Just being a fan. Like, for example, like, I don't know, like there's promos on YouTube that I've watched since 2006 a million times, even as a grown-ass man with a child. So, like, for you, and I know that I'm a little bit younger than you, so, like, I'm so fascinated about like the the tape trading that like had to be done back then because of the internet. And like I don't know if you were a part of that. I don't think you were, but like I'm out of curiosity, like how nerdy was it? Were you getting the magazines every day, reading it at school? Like tell me about this.
Yeah, I had magazines, every like subscriptions to everything that came monthly, all that stuff. The way I can like just sum it up is from grade six. It was about grade six when I discovered pro wrestling. It was like Stone Cold coming up and rising up in WWE, and I discovered WCW and ECW and everything from there on forward. Nothing existed to me in the world other than pro wrestling, and it was so like the way I can wrap it up is I went to school wearing a wrestling shirt every day. And from that moment on, I was labeled the wrestling guy. And the only friends I could have in school were the other wrestling guys that had wrestling t-shirts. And that went straight through to when I graduated high school, man. Like when you talk specifically about TNA, I'm talking me and my friends, rather than going to a party or anything like that, we're driving straight home after working at Subway doing our shift when we're 15 years old to watch Wednesday night pay-per-views or going, watching the pay-per-views on Saturday, Sunday nights, having sleepovers and stuff like that. Like we were completely obsessed, and they might not be anymore, but I certainly still am.
Without pardon the interruption on the interview, real quick, we have to show some love to the people that are helping make this content possible. ZipChair and ZipChairGaming.com. Holiday season is here, y'all. If you want to go extra on the gift, get all the brownie points, and really come up clutch this holiday season, I have a suggestion. ZipChair.com. Go there, find your partner or yourself, whoever, the perfect chair for their office, their gaming area, their cubicle, whatever the case. Or you want the recliner, you want the bar stool, you want the man cave for the house to really get the perfect thing, to really seal in the best man cave in the neighborhood. ZipChair.com. Use that discount code Adrian to save yourself 10%. And hey, if your partner has a favorite team, why don't you slap on the team's logo on it? With ZipChair, it's possible. Customizable from the logos to the comfortability. And as a big guy, it has the XXL seal of approval. ZipChairGaming.com. Use that discount code Adrian. Just a little bit. Shout out to the group of friends that all teamed up to pay for pay-per-views, man. What an era. Or just go to Buffalo Wild Wings, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's amazing. Real quick before we get into kind of what's coming up with Hard to Kill and the pay-per-view coming up here in December, I do want to ask you, like, it's been cool to see the momentum, I guess I'll say, that Impact has had for more than a year. And it's just, to me, in my opinion, the basis of it is that the shows have been phenomenal. The in-ring work has been great. And then you have things like Trinity joining, and that's another bubble that's coming up. And recently, you guys have been all over the place. You were just in your home country in Canada. You were in Mexico. You guys went back overseas. The shows that you're doing here, we're hearing the pay-per-view buys are going up. The attendance is going up. And wrestling really seems like it's been in a boom. To be in these rings, to come out, to experience these crowds and touch these people in person. Like, how has it been this year?
It's been amazing. It's all momentum, man, and the momentum's growing. Show after show after show. We show up to like a town like Memphis, where I nethat wrestled prior to Impact Wrestling going there, and I'm unsure of how the reception is going to be. I've never wrestled there before. I don't know if I'm going to come out and people are going to be on board with all that the walking weapon Josh Alexander is. And from the moment I step out in that crowd, everybody knows me. Everybody's behind me. You know what I mean? Just like I'm in any other town I grew up in wrestling in. Just like when I'm in Canada, where I've been for the past 18 plus years. And it's just the momentum, man. Like I think everybody's on board with pro wrestling right now, especially, and everybody wants to see a little bit of what everyone has. And the one benefit that we have in Impact Wrestling, and I like to call it TNA now because we're almost there. We're a month away,
Right?
Is our locker room, man. Like we're all passionate. Like I said, we were all fans of this product. We all became wrestlers because of this product. Like the Knockouts division on its own inspired our entire Knockouts division that we have here that's carrying forward. It's one of the best female divisions in all of pro wrestling. Same with the X division, same with our tag division. And it grows upon itself because we all challenge each other because we want to get back to what TNA was. Back when, I was the biggest fan of the world watching Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, and AJ Styles go at it on Unbreakable in 05. Like, we want that crowd that, in Orlando where you just see behind the ring while the match is going on. Everybody's on their feet, jumping up and down, losing their minds. And it's coming back, man. And it's beautiful to see, and we just got to keep working on it.
And you bring up that momentum, you bring up the tag division. Well, a way to keep the momentum up is bringing in Zack Sabre Jr. For Final Resolution, which I believe, hopefully I'm not wrong, so I don't get flamed on the internet, this will be Zack's first match underneath the Impact TNA umbrella outside of the Multiverse United events that you guys have done with New Japan. How excited are you to be able to team with him?
I'm pumped, man. I get to tag up with who I think is the greatest pound for pound technical wrestler living, breathing right now in the world, man. When I watch that guy, I've watched him for years, and I've been able to share locker rooms with him, luckily, over the past few. Just seeing him go in the ring, like, it's very difficult to be completely, utterly unique in pro wrestling these days. You can be very good at certain aspects of pro wrestling, but to go out there and just present yourself and do everything you do as your own style that nobody can replicate, that's incredibly difficult. And I think Zack Sabre Jr. is one of those guys in the pro wrestling world that every time he steps foot in the ring, nothing you're going to see in a Zack Sabre match is going to be possible to be seen in any other match. And I'm excited to get the front row seat right there in the apron, tagging up with him, seeing what he can do, going against, the most decorated tag team in Impact and TNA history in Motor City Machine Guns.
And, you bring up that elite list that you are a part of, by the way. And I'm not just saying that because we're talking here, but you've also been in the ring this year, and I brought it up earlier. Just names like Will Ospreay and Okada, wrestling in Japan. What a way to bounce back from an injury, by the way, my guy. Are these things that, have you had a moment to enjoy them? Because I have to believe in some degree these are like bucket list type things that you've had in your mind since you were a kid. Yeah,
absolutely. Like a little inside baseball at Bound for Glory in that main event with Alex Shelley. I tore up my shoulder a little bit. Nothing that required surgery or time off. Just stuff that was like ailing me the entire time. And the next night is when we taped that match with Will Ospreay. And nothing was going to 100% moving without my left arm through most of that match, and just to be able to step foot in the ring with somebody like Will, who I've watched, everybody's seen, everybody knows how good he is, but to get in there and go one-on-one and realize like the type of chemistry that we have together instantly, first time stepping foot in the ring, and to be able to deliver a match like that for the Impact crowd, like that's the kind of stuff that builds momentum. That's the stuff I want to be a part of. And you say like stop and smell the roses. The Japan thing, the second I heard about it, that I had to get a visa to go to Japan, I didn't know who I was wrestling or anything like that. When I got the call, I had to stop for a second and be like, oh my God, it's finally happening. This thing's evaded me for all 18 years. I've never been to Japan. It's the one place I needed to go to be completely satisfied with my life and career. And, when I got on that flight, I, was flying over to Japan for that, 14-hour flight or whatever it is, I got a little welled up thinking about that it was finally happening because, like I said, it evaded me for so long. Just to be able to step foot in the ring with legends like Tanahashi, Okada, one of my favorites in Ishii, in my debut match in Sumo Hall, man, you couldn't dream of a bigger way to, debut in that country. So
no, that's incredible. We like to give roses around here, so salute yourself. You're really out here doing it, and we got less than a minute to go before we close this out. So, my friend, I hope we can do this again in person for a little bit longer, but since we have a minute left, I'm going speed round questions. Are you ready? Are you prepared, sir?
I hope so.
All right, let's do this. How do you really feel about Drake?
I'm indifferent. I liked his old stuff. I don't like his new stuff.
You said you're a big Raptors guy. How do you feel about Kawhi Leonard?
I love Kawhi Leonard. He gave us a championship. I have no problem with him leaving.
Shout out to you. Spurs fans learned something. Who's the best indie wrestler in the world right now?
Oh, man. Speed round question for that. Canada, Judas Icarus. Oh, I'm not super familiar. U.S., Bounty Keith.
What's a cheat day look like for you?
Cheat day is Subway chocolate chip cookies and, maybe a couple slices of pizza.
Last two. Athlete that's a non-wrestler that inspires you the most?
Kobe Bryant, that mama mentality, man.
And then I know in Canada, you guys just call it a regular Thursday. Here in America, we call it Thanksgiving that we just had. So with that being said, final question is, Josh Alexander, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for the health of my family. And I'm thankful that I can do what I love because as they say, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And luckily, I don't have to work to support my family that I love and care about so much. So
there it is, Josh Alexander. And what you told me the first time we met, I hope I didn't fuck this interview up. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, man. Anytime. All the best, bro.